Hi everybody and welcome to this week's lesson focusing on the Cambridge Proficiency exam, and this is a very interesting exam. It's very popular in different parts of the world, particularly in Spain as well. It's very popular to receive a qualification, and in many parts of the world it's a very popular exam to test your English. So if you're interested in preparing this exam, I suggest that you look for information in relation to this test and investigate it. But today is a very good opportunity to learn English anyway. So this lesson will be fantastic in terms of vocabulary and grammar and interesting exercises. So I welcome everybody to join this lesson and to try and practice these exercises with me. And as I said, I think it's a very good way to learn English in general. We can discuss vocabulary and we can discuss lots of different issues during this particular lesson. So thank you for connecting, thank you for watching live, and thank you if you're watching recorded later today. I'm trying to grow this project, I'm trying to grow the Facebook page, and your help is very important. Subtitles are available. If you want to follow my conversation, select the subtitle option on Facebook, and this will make it easier to understand me during this class. Great. So if you want to contact me on social media, you can contact me on Instagram. I have the Instagram page here at @Melhora Inglés. Also on TikTok, I have the TikTok account @Melhora Inglés with some funny short videos with expressions. And also YouTube. I have the YouTube channel with very similar content compared to the Facebook page. Pinterest is a possibility if you are a fan of Pinterest or a user of Pinterest. I am on Pinterest on @Melhora1. And finally, WhatsApp. You can contact me on WhatsApp if you have a question or a doubt or anything related to the lessons. You can contact me on WhatsApp. My schedule is more or less the same as last week, and if you want to follow my schedule, you can check this information and maybe you can join one of the lessons. This timetable is available on my Facebook page on the cover, and it's a very good opportunity if you want to join my lessons. Everything is free, all the lessons are free. You can support me if you want. You can make a donation at the end of the lesson through the bank transfer or PayPal. All the information is on my Facebook page on the pinned post, and this specifically is for businesses. If you are a business, if you are a company, a school, a charity, and you want to support my project, you want to finance my project or fund my project, I can also advertise your company here during the lesson and promote your business during this lesson. So that's a very good opportunity if you want to do that. So hopefully you can help me in that way. Great, so let's begin. Previously, we have explained the different parts of the exam, part 3, part 2, part 1 of the use of English. And if you are new today and you're interested in learning about the exam, I suggest you check my previous videos where I explain the different parts of the exam, and specifically I explain parts 3 and 4. So today we're going to begin with the handbook, and this book is very, very popular. So just let me check. In fact, it's my mistake. I think we're moving on to exercise 3. At the proficiency level, we have not done part 3 yet. So before we move to part 4, I think it's necessary that we test part 3 as well. And as far as I remember, we have not looked at this topic yet. No, okay, so I think part 3 is the topic for today. I should have checked before, but I had not the time really. So let's begin. And if you remember, last week we did part 2. Part 2, there's no option. You must put the word from your memory, from your vocabulary, into the correct position here in part 2, and that's very, very difficult. But today we move to part 3, and it's slightly different. You have a text, you have an article from a newspaper, a magazine, a book, a journal, something formal, something good quality, and here we have a text. So basically, our job is to focus on the word, particularly at the end of each sentence. So, for example, number 17, the space corresponds with the word at the end of the sentence, scarce. Number 18 corresponds with gene, and so on. Okay, so this is very interesting. And our job is to change the form of the word. So, for example, gene is a noun. A gene, we need to think of the verb, the adjective, or an adverb. And that's a very important part of this exam. It's the formation, it's the form of the word. We need to change the word form for the appropriate sentence. Okay, so first, let's read the description at the top and the information. For questions 17 to 24, read the text below and use the word given in capitals at the end of some of the lines to form a word that fits in the space in the same line. Okay, so there is an example at the beginning, 0, and you must write your answers in capital letters on a separate page. So the first word is seasonal, and it's connected to the word season, and season is the noun and seasonal is the adjective. So you understand the instruction at the moment. Okay, let's begin. So first we read the text and try to understand. It's very important to have a general idea of the text first, and then we can start the exercise to select the correct word. So the topic is the migration of birds. That's obviously a very specific topic. Migration is the perilous seasonal journey undertaken by many bird species. In the northern hemisphere, it is prompted by the something of food. Migrants are also something programmed to respond to the changing length of the day as autumn approaches. Nevertheless, in the tropics, where there is little variation in the amount of daylight, migration is still a surprisingly common space. Many birds will display considerable restlessness before beginning their journeys. Their space to the Earth's magnetic field helps them navigate, but inexperienced birds may get things space wrong and end up far from their intended destination. In the past, the return dates could be predicted with great precision, but climate change makes this harder. Although it is space for birds to return earlier than their rivals so they can establish territories, getting back too early could have incalculable consequences for their long-term survival. However, some birds are space, reducing the distance they migrate in response to a milder climate. Their adaptability in such a short period is, in space terms, has greatly surprised scientists. Okay, so I suggest now you try to do this exercise yourself and try to find the answer from your vocabulary, from your memory, and I think it's important that you try to do this exercise yourself before I try to explain some of the tips. So take your time, take a picture, press pause, do what you want, but I suggest that you take your time to do this exercise yourself first. Okay, let's begin. And if you have a comment, if you have a question during the lesson, you can put your comment in the Facebook chat and I will be able to answer and respond to your comment during the lesson and definitely after the lesson. So please put your comment in the chat and any question that you have, I can answer as well. So the first words that we see is very difficult is perilous. This is a very advanced English word with the significance dangerous. So it's a perilous situation, it's a dangerous situation, a perilous journey, a very dangerous journey. So it's a really good quality English word. But we also have another expression. We say in peril. So for example, your job is in peril, and this means that your job is in danger. And that's very important as well. So the connection here is in peril, and the significance is in danger. But the adjective is perilous, very dangerous trip, very dangerous journey. The next verb we have here is very, very important. It's the verb to undertake. This is advanced with the significance to do, almost the same as to do. So if you undertake a job, you do a job, you take the responsibility. Undertake a journey, you start and you do a journey. So it's a very advanced word, and it's very, very important, and it really means to start or to take or to do this particular journey. So that's difficult, but it's very important to notice. Also, the pronunciation of this word is key as well. In English, we say a species, and a species is a type of bird, a type of animal, in fact. You have different animals and you have different species. A species is a specific type of animal, but you must be clear with the pronunciation between species and a spice, or plural spices. So of course this is very important, and let me write here, a species and spices are completely different. The first significance is a type of animal, and the second significance is related to food. When you cook food, you add a spice, and in plural you add spices. So it's really interesting, the difference. So be very clear between the difference of a species and spices. And of course we have another adjective, spicy. The food is very spicy. So it's very, very good quality vocabulary. Next key vocabulary is the verb to prompt. So in the Northern Hemisphere, it is prompted. This is the participle, but the verb is to prompt. And again, it's really good quality English, and the significance is almost to make you do something. So if I prompt you to study harder, I encourage you, I force you in a way, I make you do something. So not exactly force, it's more encourage or make. I'll give you a few examples here. A very typical question is, what prompted you to change your job? So this basically means, what was the factor, what was the key ingredient, what was the key moment, the key decision for you to change your job? Why did you change the job? Something specifically prompted you, made you change the job. So that's very, very interesting and very common in English and very good quality. Also, we have the adjective, we say to be prompt, and this means to be very fast, to be quick, don't wait, be very prompt, and that's very good quality as well. In fact, in the television channels, we have a teleprompter, and a teleprompter is the object that the presenter is reading. So you know, in the studio, the presenter is reading the screen, and the special screen with the vocabulary, with the news, with the story is a teleprompter, because the screen encourages, makes the presenter speak in this way. So it's a really, really important verb, and it's very fluent, and most people learning English don't really use this enough, and it's a really good quality word to remember. A teleprompter, to be prompt, or a prompt decision as well. So it's really good quality. And in this situation, migration is prompted, happens, occurs because of, by the, something of food. So the significance of this word is the adjective scarce, and the pronunciation is very important. If something is scarce, it's very difficult to find. It's very typical in economics, and very typical in the market, and very typical in business. If a product is scarce, this means the product is very hard to find, hard to obtain, difficult to get. So it's really good quality, and it's very typical with food. You can say food is scarce, and this means food is very difficult to find. But in this sentence, we need to find the substantive because we have the definite article the, and when we have the definite article, we typically need the noun. And yes, there is a noun form of scarce, and the noun form is very difficult, very advanced, and we say the scarcity. So this is the correct answer, I think. So number 17 is simply scarcity. The pronunciation is flexible. I think you can say scarcity or scarcity. So don't worry too much about the pronunciation. I think both variations are possible, but that is the correct answer here. The scarcity of food. Okay, so the next sentence. Migrants, this is the person in the plural. So you've one migrant is a person who needs to travel for work or for safety to a different country, and in the plural is migrants, and it's possible to immigrate or to emigrate. So we have lots of vocabulary connected to this word. You can immigrate to a country or you can emigrate and leave your country. So very important vocabulary. In this case, it's the people. The migrants are also programmed. Here we have the verb to be plus the participle. And this structure and formula of the verb to be plus the participle is considered the passive. And the passive is here. And we must consider this word in particular, a gene. So a gene is the noun, and it's something in your DNA, it's your gene. And we have a couple of expressions. We say it's in your genes, for example. And this means it's part of your DNA, it's part of your fabric, it's part of you, it's in your genes. So a gene is the noun, but we need probably an adverb, because the only acceptable variation of the word gene in this case is the adverb. Because we have a verb, we have another verb form, and we have an adverb also maybe is an adverb, but we need another type of adverb as well. So the adverb form of a gene is, for example, a gene is the noun, genetically is the adverb. Okay, genetics would also be a noun. It's the subject that you study at school or university. You study genetics, and genetically would be the adverb. The adjective I don't think is typical, but this is the type of calculation you must make in your decision. So I think the answer for number 18 is genetically. And typically for food, you might say genetically modified food, and this means the food is changed in the substance, in the DNA, the formula, it's changed. It's genetically modified food. So in this situation, I think the answer is genetically programmed to respond to answer the changing length of the day. So the adjective is long, a long day, but the noun is the length of your holiday, the length of the swimming pool, the length of the football pitch, and the adjective is long. So very important, the difference between the adjective and the substantive, and in this case it's the noun, it's the substantive. So the changing length, the changing duration of the day as has the significance while. As is very flexible in English. As can mean like, as can mean because, and as can mean while. So there's three different significances for the word as, and in this case I think the best translation or synonym is similar to while or when, but probably while autumn approaches. The verb to approach is to come towards you. So it's very important verb in English as well. To approach a person is to move towards a person. If you approach a person, you move to the person on the street. The aeroplane is approaching the airport, so it's coming to the airport. It's also possible to approach a problem. If you have a difficult problem, what is your attitude? What is your approach to this problem? So basically it's attitude, mentality, your perspective and the way that you behave, your approach to this problem. So it's very flexible. And in this situation, it just means that autumn is coming, it's approaching. Next, we see a linker, and a very advanced linker, and the pronunciation is nevertheless. Originally, it was 3 different words: never, the, less. So originally 3 independent words, but today it's 1 word combined. And the significance really is, how do I explain this? This is very difficult to explain. So it's almost like however, similar to however, or having said that. I suppose a good translation could be having said that. Maybe is a possible way to say nevertheless. And that's interesting for sure. So let's continue. Nevertheless, in the tropics, so the tropic is a tropical climate, a place with a tropical climate, where there is little variation in the amount, the quantity of daylight. Migration is still, it continues to be a surprisingly common occur. Okay, this is very interesting because the verb is to occur. This means something to happen. What occurred at the weekend? What happened at the weekend? Happened is more general. Most people understand happen, but really to occur is very, very similar. And we have a very famous expression. We say it never occurred to me, and this means I never considered this problem. I never considered this idea. It never occurred to me. Okay, so again, it's the verb form. And in this sentence, we have the indefinite article. When you have the indefinite article, you need the noun or a substantive. They're the same. Some people say substantive, some people say a noun. And in this case, we need a noun because we have an article. Surprisingly is an adverb or an adjective. I think more adverb. Common definitely is an adjective. So that's okay. We have 2 adjective types. So we need a noun. Therefore, the noun form of occur is important, and the noun form is also important for the spelling. And we say occurrence, and my spelling was incorrect. It's in fact occurrence. And I would have a mistake because my instinct for the spelling was occurrence. But no, it's ENCE, an occurrence. I think. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Well, my first instinct was actually correct. So an occurrence is something that happens. And this is very, very appropriate in this sentence. It's a surprisingly common occurrence. This means it happens regularly, but it's in the verbal, it's in the form of the noun. It's an occurrence, it's a noun form. So that is the first paragraph. And number 19, just to confirm, is occurrence or occurrence. And that is correct, I think, here. And why we have the spelling. Oof. So in this case, the computer is correcting me to occurrence. So let's see in the answer what is the correct answer. Let's continue to the next paragraph. Again, if you have a question, if you have a comment, please leave your question in the Facebook chat. I can check the questions later, and you can also interact with each other as well in the comments if you want. Let's go. So this paragraph, many birds will display considerable restlessness before beginning their journey. So basically display is to show. To display emotion is to show emotion. To display your feelings, to show your feelings. To display something is to show. Maybe in your window, if you are a business, you have a window and you display your items that you are selling. So in this situation, the birds will show, they will express. Considerable means quite a lot, but the key word here is restlessness. This is absolutely the key word. The adjective is restless. If the person is very restless. This means the person is unable to relax. The person cannot relax. The person cannot rest. So the adjective is very, very important. We say a restless person. And this basically means the person who constantly is moving. The person cannot stay calm. The person needs to be doing something all the time. This person is very restless. That's the adjective. In this text, ness typically represents a noun, and this is exactly the situation here. So restlessness is the noun before beginning their journeys. Their sense to the Earth's magnetic field helps them navigate. Okay, so here we have the possessive adjective, my pen, your pen, his pen, her pen, our pen, your pen, their pen, plural. So with the possessive adjective, we need a noun again. And sense is a noun, yes, but it's necessary always to change this word always in this exercise. So what other possibilities do we have with the word sense? I can think of sensible. I can think of sensitive. I can think of sensibility. And I can think of sensitivity. And they are the four possible combinations in my mind. For example, sensible and sensitive are adjectives. Okay, but we need nouns. And here we have two nouns, sensibility and sensitivity. So I think the correct answer could be sensitivity because of the context, the magnetic field. So the birds are very sensitive to the magnetic field. Therefore, the noun form is sensitivity. So I think the answer for number 20 is the sensitivity, I would suggest. And that would fit very, very well. Helps them navigate and to explore. But inexperienced birds, basically birds with no experience. So it's the negative. But sometimes in English, the prefix for the negative is irregular. And this is in. And yes, sometimes the negative is represented by the in prefix. Sometimes it's im, for example, impossible. Sometimes it's un, unbelievable. So it's different. And in this situation, the prefix is in, inexperienced birds may get. May is the modal verb for possibility. And this morning we explained in the grammar lesson the modal verbs may get things wrong. So this is the structure, to get something wrong. If you are working and you do the job and you do something incorrect, you get the job wrong. You make a mistake. You misinterpret also. So to get a thing wrong is to do something incorrectly. However, that's fine, but the word here is spectacle, and a spectacle is a noun. But in this situation, we have different possibilities. A spectacle, spectacular, is an adjective. Something is amazing, something is unbelievable, it's spectacular. And in this sentence, I think we need an adverb form. Okay, so I think the only possibility is an adverb form, and the adverb for spectacle is spectacularly. So you get things spectacularly wrong, and this and this means that you get things incredibly wrong. So I think the answer for number 21 is spectacularly. And that's difficult. It's easier for me, of course, because I'm a native English speaker and I have a lot of years listening to English since it's being a child. But still, sometimes it's difficult for native English speakers. But I think the answer for 21 is spectacularly wrong. And this means similar to dramatically, incredibly wrong. And end up, if you end up, this is your final position, your final location. So if you are traveling like a bird and you misinterpret, you get things spectacularly wrong, finally, you will be in a very different place. You will finally finish in a very different destination. Okay, and that's very, very important. So I think 21 is spectacular. That's the second paragraph. Again, if you have a comment, put your comment in the Facebook chat, and any doubts, I can answer your question later. Next, in the past, the return dates could be, maybe, might be predicted with great accuracy, with great precision. But climate change makes this difficult, makes this hard, makes this harder. So it's the comparative comparison, hard, harder, hardest. Although, however, it is the subject, and always, the majority of the time in English, we need the subject, it. The verb is to be, it is. So because we have the verb to be, we probably need the adjective. And advantage is the noun. An advantage, the negative is disadvantage, but we need the adjective, and this is very, very difficult, and it's really appropriate for proficient English. So the adjective for advantage is very difficult, and I think the answer is advantageous. Okay, and I think that's the correct answer. Something is advantageous, it's good for you, it helps you, it's beneficial, it's advantageous, and that is an adjective form of the word, the noun, an adjective. So, however, although it is advantageous for birds to return earlier than their rivals so they can establish territories, that's logical, it looks good. So is the consequences. Can is the ability, they have the ability to create the territory, to establish the territory. Getting back, returning too early, excessively early, could have, may have, might have incalculable consequences. Very difficult vocabulary. So consequences is obviously something that will happen in the future, and if it's incalculable, it's almost impossible to measure, almost impossible to calculate, because you have so many. So the consequences will be dramatic, incalculable for the long-term survival. Okay, next. However, some birds are, and again we have the verb to be, so progress is a verb, to progress, and also it's a noun, de progress. So there's a verb and a noun form. In this sentence, maybe we need an adjective because we have the verb to be, or maybe we need an adverb because this is the only other word I can think connected to progress in this situation. So one adjective is progressive. So in sport, your tactics can be very progressive, very developed, modern. So progressive is one adjective, but an adverb I think would be progressively. So birds are progressively reducing the distances they migrate, and it's difficult. I don't really understand that sentence immediately, but I think the answer could be progressively reducing the distances they migrate in response to a milder climate. So this means they are reducing the distance little by little, but regularly, progressively, more and more. Okay, so I think that's the only answer for 23, progressively reducing the distance they migrate in response to a milder climate. And mild is very important adjective in relation to temperature. If the temperature is very mild, it's comfortable. It's not really hot and it's not really cold, it's mild. So it's good vocabulary, and here it's the comparative milder climate compared to the other locations. Their adaptability, remember this is the possessive adjective, and therefore we need a noun. The verb is to adapt, but the noun is adaptability. So my adaptability, your adaptability, their adaptability in a short period, in such, that's emphasis, in such a short period, in, this is very, very difficult, but there is an expression in English with this structure in something terms. The verb is to evolve, and yes, there is a structure here connected to terms, and the only possible answer is evolutionary. And That's very difficult for me to help you and to explain. But the verb is to evolve, and the noun is evolution, and the adjective is evolutionary. And I think in this situation, it's the adjective we need in evolutionary terms, because terms is the noun, and typically before the noun, we regularly have an adjective. So I think 24 could be evolutionary. And that seems to be correct. So they would be my answers. They would be more or less everything that I want to say. But of course, we must check the answers. And in this page, I think we have the answers at the back. And let me move down to the bottom, and we can see here the answers for part 3. So let me open my book at the same time. And 17 is scarcity or scarceness. So you have 2 possibilities, and that's fine. 18 is genetically, that's good. 19 is occurrence, but you can see the E is the way to spell this and not A. A lot of people will write A, occurrence, but no, it's occurrence. But this will trick a lot of people. 20 is sensitivity. 21 is spectacularly. 22 advantageous, and the spelling is very difficult also. 23 progressively, and 24 evolutionary. So I'm very happy because everything is correct, but I expected maybe a couple of small errors, a couple of small mistakes, and that is part 3, specifically from the Proficiency English exam in Cambridge, level C2. So really good exercise to test your English, really good quality, and I hope that you understand the explanations. I hope that you tried the exercise, and I hope that you enjoyed this exercise. Any questions, please put your question in the chat and I can answer your questions or your doubts soon as well. Next, we move to a second exercise. So in this book, I think we have something similar. So let me find the correct part 3. So we will do this very, very quickly, just as an alternative second exercise. And it will be hard, of course, but this is exactly the same structure. And let's try. So the first word is effortless. Without any effort, it was effortless. But the text, let's read very quickly because we will finish very, very soon. Watching a successful theatre production is an amazing experience. The performance looks effortless and everything goes smoothly. But this often the amount of work that actually was involved. At the Palace Theatre, the average time from the first rehearse to the opening night is just 4 weeks of intensive work. Everyone involved attends the first read through by the cast, so this is an ideal opportunity to get an sight into how a production germinates. I took myself to the theatre on a chill October morning to attend the read-through of the theatre's new production, the British premiere of Sive, by the acclaimed Irish play John B. Keane. It is about a young girl about to be married off for money to an old man, while her true love can only look on, help. It is a poignant portrayal of rural family life, rich in comedy and filled with memory, characters played by an Irish cast for linguistic authentic. Very, very interesting. And now is your opportunity to try and do this exercise. So I suggest you try to guess the correct answer. Number 0 is effortless. Number 16, I'm having difficulty to find the answer for number 16. I think it's difficult. But number 17 is the verb to rehearse. And this means to practice. Okay, so the verb to rehearse is very, very important. And the significance is to practice specifically for musicians, for the theatre, for actors, and for performers. You need to practice, you need to rehearse. But the noun is a rehearsal. And I think that's the correct answer here. So number 17 is the. So it's the definite article. We need the noun, and first is the adjective. The first rehearsal to the opening night is just 4 weeks. So I think the correct word is the noun, and the noun is the rehearsal. Okay. Everyone involved attends the first read through. So a read through is like a practice, I think, where you read the script by the cast. The cast is the group of people, the group of actors. So therefore, this is a perfect opportunity, an ideal opportunity to get something into. This is very, very important because there is a typical structure in English, and let me explain. To give you an, this is the structure, and the key word here is an insight into. So to give you an insight into has the significance they give you the perspective from inside to tell you what is the real story, what is really happening. And that's a very famous structure to give you an insight into, to explain to you. So number 18 is to obtain, to get an insight into, to obtain a perspective from inside the business. So really good quality, and I think the correct word is an insight. Really good. Number 16, I need to read again. So the performance looks effortless and everything goes smoothly, comfortably, but this often, I think, is to belie, and this is like to trick or to fool. And if something belies the amount, I think that's the correct answer. This often belies, it often tricks you, and it's not the true representation. You cannot see clearly, so it often belies the amount of work that was actually involved. That's my guess. I could be wrong, but I think the answer is to belie, like trick you, because you cannot see the truth. Okay. Number 19. I brought myself to the theatre on a morning, an October morning. Chill is the noun, and it's also a verb. If you have a chill, it's a cold sensation. But in this situation, we have the article a and we have the noun morning. So October is a type of adjective, and chill, we probably need another type of adjective. And the best adjective here, I think, is chilly. So basically, it's on a chilly October morning, a very cold, fresh, cool morning, to attend, to go to the read through of the theatre's new production. Okay. The theatre was by the acclaimed, the celebrated Irish person, John B. Keane, and a play is in the theatre. It's a performance. But John B. Keane is not a play. John B. Keane is the person who writes the play. And the specific word here is a playwright or a playwright, I think. So a playwright, I think, is the person who writes the play. But the spelling, I'm not sure. And in fact, I probably need to check the internet for that definition. But more or less, the pronunciation is correct. A playwright is the person who writes the song, the theatre. And let me see if I can. Yes, it could be a playwright. I think that's definitely the correct way to say it. It's the person who writes and creates the performance and the play. So that would be my answer for number 20. He's an Irish playwright, the person who writes the play, John B. Keane. Number 21. It's about a young girl about to be married off. That's a phrasal verb. And it's very interesting, the preposition to marry off, because the sense is that the person goes away. So maybe the child is in the family, and then you marry the child off and you send them away to live a married life. So that's the significance of to marry somebody off, and then it's complete. The sense that it's finished and it's complete. So that's the sense here of to marry off. And here it's the passive with the verb to be plus the participle to be married off for money to an old man. While her true love, however, at the same time, her true love can only look on. This is important phrasal verb as well. To look on is like to observe. And the best combination here with help is helpless. If you are helpless, the adjective, you cannot do anything. You are helpless in the situation. So a helpless person is maybe somebody who cannot do anything themselves. However, to look on helplessly is very, very interesting, and this means you're observing, but you cannot do anything to help. You're looking on helplessly. You cannot do anything to help, but you're observing. So that's very important, and I think that's the correct answer for number 21. It's a poignant, pronunciation is very important, poignant. So the G is silent, a poignant portrayal. It's a very emotional and sensitive portrayal of rural family life, rich in comedy. It has a lot of comedy and filled with characters. So a character is the noun, but we need the adjective because the memory also is a noun, and the adjective would be memorable. I think that's the most appropriate adjective, and therefore memorable characters would be characters that you cannot forget, characters that you just think of and that you always remember. So memorable is the adjective. By an Irish cast, a group of actors. For linguistic, authentic is an adjective, but linguistic also is the adjective. And normally after the adjective, we need a noun, and linguistic is an adjective. So probably we need the noun form of authentic, and the noun form of authentic is very difficult. Authenticity, I think, is the correct and appropriate noun form. So for linguistic authenticity, very difficult, but that would be the correct form, I think. Finally, the last paragraph. It's important for people to have a sense of common purpose and team. So it's important for people to have a sense of something connected to team, explains director Ben Barnes. The play has been in pre-production since June, but this is the first reading, and it will be indicate, so the verb is to indicate, of how the actors work together. Okay. And it's for the theatre staff as much as the actors. So number 24, in my opinion, is okay, and I have a clear idea. So with team, the only variations of the word could be teamwork. Okay, so you need to have a sense of teamwork, and I think that would be the correct answer. It's possible a hyphen, and I think it's possible together, no big difficulty. But generally, this exercise only is one word. So teamwork is one word. And this is the first reading, and it will be, so here we have the verb to be. And after the verb to be, we typically have the adjective. The verb is to indicate, but the adjective, I think, is indicative. And that's very, very important and very difficult. But I think that's the correct adjective. Indicative. Also, we say an indication of, that's a possible way to say it as well. It's an indication of, but that's the noun form. And in this case, we need the adjective. It will be indicative of how actors work together. So they are the answers for this particular exercise. The real answers are at the bottom of this page, and it will take me a long time to find the answers, but if you're interested, I can post the answers later on the Facebook page below the video, no problem. Okay, I think that's everything for today. So you can see this is part 3 for the proficiency exam, and very, very good quality, very, very interesting, and I like this exercise a lot. So the vocabulary is important, the form, verb, noun, adjective, adverb, negative is very important, and the spelling is very important. The correct detail to spell each word is really important as well. So it's a very good exercise. I hope you enjoy it. I think everybody will learn something from this exercise. Yes, if you're preparing the exam, fantastic, but I think a lot of people will learn anyway. And for this reason, it's a very good activity to show you a lot of this content. So that's everything for today. And thank you very much for watching. Remember, if you want to follow my schedule and my timetable, you can see my timetable on my Facebook page. And basically, it's similar compared to last week. And today we'll try to continue with the Liverpool accent, I think. And that might be very interesting for everybody to try and understand the Liverpool accent. But we have different lessons every week, and I hope you can join. Also, if you want to contact me, you can contact me on Instagram, follow me on social media, on TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, and WhatsApp if you want to take a picture and enter the details into the social media sites, and you can find my pages there. Everything is free and everything is for the public. But if you are a company, if you're a business and you want to advertise and sponsor my project, there's lots of different ways, and you can finance my project or fund this free project, and I can speak about your business and promote your company in return. So that's a possibility, and you're very welcome. As I said, I have contacted some educational companies, businesses, charities, suggesting this project and idea for sponsorship as well. So that's it. Great. Thank you so much for today. I hope that you enjoyed the lesson. I will check the comments at the end of this page. I will check all the comments that are made, hopefully, and I can respond to your comments as well. So thank you so much. Have a good day, and hopefully I will see you soon in my next lesson. And thank you so much. Bye bye.